Hi there guys, and welcome to another Millie episode. So those of you that were with me last time will know that my plan was to repair this wheel arch, and I started doing it. I've cut the piece out. There it is. But when I did cut this wheel arch out, I found that this piece here was pretty rotten. So I cut that out, but then I found out that this piece was rotten, and the piece behind that was rotten, and the piece behind that was rotten. So all of this piece has been restored, put back together again now. So that is all now free of rust, and we can start building the wheel arch up. But found another hole over here, so I need to make a patch panel for that as well. And that is what we're going to do in this episode. So I'm going to show you how I make the panel, and then we're going to weld it in there, probably about that size to fit in there. And I also want to clean up the inside of this wheel arch and get rid of that horrible 40-something-year-old liner that's in there. And I'm going to be using the death wheel. I really don't like these. I think they're dangerous as hell, but they do a good job. This has been done with the wheel of death, so it really does do a good job, but it's scary as hell to use. So I'm going to start off by cleaning part of that wheel arch off. We'll see how well it goes as to whether I do a lot more of the wheel arch, but at least around that area I'm definitely going to get done now so that we can start to weld in a new patch panel. Right, so I have now put a piece of, or 3 pieces of masking tape there, which covers up the hole, but it gives me the bottom line, because it's followed this line here, and it went all the way along the bottom there to that corner. And it gives me a line to cut to there, and a line to cut to there. So that gives me the shape. Now, I think what I want to try and do, as you can see, there's a spot weld there, one there, and there's another one there, because this panel here goes behind this one and it goes to about there. So I could ideally drill out those 4, maybe another one up there, 5 spot welds, and take this whole panel out all the way back there, and then I put the new one in behind there, spot weld it in, and I'll have got rid of all of the rust that's in there. I mean, I could cut to just this joint here and weld it up to that joint, but if there's anything behind here, I won't know about it. So I'm kind of toying with that idea in my head at the moment, to drill out these spot welds. I think I will drill them out and just see that this separates from this. If it does quite easily, then it's just a matter of cutting along that line and that line, and I've got the panel out of the way anyway. So I'm toying with that, and then it'll give me more panel to work with to put the new one in there. So I'm going to drill them spot welds out, I think. I think I've almost convinced myself, and we'll take it from there. Look at that. Well, surprise, surprise, that was more work than I planned on. So it was only going to be this little hole here, turned out to be part of the boot floor as well. So this is the original piece that I took out. That was the bit I started on. When I got that out, I found that it kind of showed me this piece. So it's rotten here where the toe-in eye bar piece fits. It's got a nice big rusted hole here, so that could have been one repair panel. And then it was also rusted here where the anti-roll bar has got a hole for, so it was rusted here as well. So that couldn't have been another piece. But then it was also rusted against this edge here where it kind of folds down, so that would have also been another piece. So it would have been 3 separate pieces, or, as I've done now, one piece. The only thing with this is now that it has got a lot of bends and things like that. So this is going to be very interesting to make. I don't know whether I'll end up making it in several pieces and welding it together and then fitting it into the hole. Could very well be that way, because I don't think I can make that out of one sheet. But yeah, that turned out to be more work than I planned on. So this piece is fairly simple to make, to be honest. It is pretty much a square piece like that. It's got a couple of bends in it, but nothing major. So I've transferred the measurements from this piece of old metal onto the new one. So I've drawn around there and I've drawn around that long line there, but then I want to get the bends in. So I've got one there, I've got another bend there, and then there's obviously the little bend there. So basically what I've done is taken this piece, turned it over, laid it against the edge there, and you can see where that line is there, that crease there, and there's a line there now that goes up to the top edge, and then the same there, there's a crease going down there, and that meets at that line there, and then there's obviously one along there as well, which meets up with that first line up to that corner there. And basically I've had to estimate there because it's not going to be easy to do it on there, but there's one crease line there and there's another one right on that corner there. So one there, and that relates to that line going up there, that line going up there, and then that one coming back down there, and then it finishing about there somewhere. So I'm going to cut this slightly bigger, so I'll probably go to this line here. I'll not take the top off yet because that can always be done afterwards. But the bottom line I think I'm going to cut along this straight edge here, and then I can start bending these pieces around to make them fit. So that's the very rough cut of that now. So now we just need to add the bends into it. That's not too bad. That's a little slightly rounded. So that piece fits that quite nicely. And now we need to bend that one back again. Okay, so I need to bend this side more. And that starts to look like it should do. There. And then that piece there is going to need to be bent as well. So that is not too bad compared to that. So let's go and match it up to the car and see what needs to be adjusted. That's not a bad match, that isn't. It does need a few adjustments on it. It obviously needs this line now taken off to bring that panel up to about the right height, but that is not a bad little fit, I think. It will obviously need a bit of a tweak down the bottom edge here. So I'm going to cut that top edge off now, and then we can hold it up to there. But as you can see, that is pretty close to what the original piece used to look like. And I think that will tuck quite nicely into there. So let's chop that top edge off and see what it looks like. Right, so moment of truth then. Those lines do seem to match up with the rest of the bodywork. It's slightly too long at this end, so that needs a trim. This is slightly more rounded than this piece here, but other than that, that matches really rather nicely with what used to be there. Right, so somewhere around about like that is where that panel should fit in the end. I have to readjust this corner a little tiny bit to get it to fit, but that's pretty much as I want it to be now. So I'm going to clean up this part now so that I've got some fresh metal to weld to, and then I can start putting the clamps out and stuff, clamping it into place, and then putting a few tacks here and there, and then adjusting the little bits that need adjusting to get it absolutely flush and neat. But yeah, that's pretty much where I want that panel to be. So that's all now tacked into place. Not too bad. Still trying to find the settings on the machine because it's very, very new to me, but that doesn't look too bad. I've got a slight adjustment to make here, but that can be knocked out from the back with the hammer. Tighten that clamp up on the back there and then knock that out with the hammer so that it comes nicely in line with there. It's not that bad actually. It feels fairly level, but this piece here needs to come out slightly. So I may put another tack just there, right on that edge there, so that this piece will then come further out. And then that doesn't look too bad, to be honest. It just then now needs welding into place the rest of it. But yeah, that looks pretty okay actually. Right, so I've just put a couple more tacks in there just to hold that into place, and then I can move this around, as I said. But as I was just working around here a little bit, I noticed that I need to cut that weld off now because this panel has moved very slightly. So that touches, that doesn't. So I need to cut that weld off and then realign it again because that's no good. So that's all welded now. Because I don't have a compressor out here, I had to weld a way that I don't really like welding, and that is, normally I would weld like 3 spots and then I'd cool it, 3 spots and cool it, 3 spots and cool it. But because I don't have a compressor out here, I had to weld a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there, then go back to here because that's got cool, a little bit there, then a little bit there, and a little bit there. So spread the heat out along the whole panel. I don't normally like doing it that way because it can warp it pretty badly, whereas I can normally keep it at a fairly constant temperature. This panel is hot now, so the risk is now when that cools down that it could warp, and I'm hoping it doesn't, but I don't like doing it that way. But as I don't have a compressor out here, I've got to do it that way at the moment. till I can get a compressor. So I've only got this corner here really to fill in now, and then it's these plug welds on the back, and then that is a repaired wheel arch, and we can get onto the big wheel arch all around there then. Right, so my next part was going to be to weld this piece here, but I thought I'd just test the old piece that used to go there before I did too much. And as you can see, I've had to adjust this panel, so when that is fitted in there, this edge will run all the way along there, so I've had to just adjust this piece here, and I just used the hammer and dolly just to get that to go in flush with there. There's still a little bit more work to do, as you can see. If I just push it down a bit too far, you can still see that there's a little bit more work to do there, and possibly a little bit more work to do just here. So I'm not going to do any more to that piece. It's still going to be loose along there until I change the boot floor, because then I'll be able to match that up to the new boot floor when it goes in there. So that is as far as I'm going to go with that piece right now. It still needs grinding work on the inside and the outside, but that can be done later. So I'm quite happy with how that panel looks right now. Those of you that watch my Ford Fair video, if you haven't already seen it, I'll link to it at the end of this video. So if you have seen it, you'll know that I made a purchase while I was at Ford Fair. If you don't know, because you haven't seen it, bit of a spoiler alert, but I bought some parts while I was there. So this is the part that I bought. Now it doesn't look exactly the same as it did in the video at Ford Fair, because, well, obviously, as you can see, I've posted it to myself, which just takes forever to get it through the post, and it's a pain in the neck to get it here, but it was a lot cheaper than me cutting it in half and trying to send it in my suitcase. So let's get this unboxed and we'll have a look what's in it. So there we have it, brand new floor. I did try and make a piece for this. It didn't work very well. So I thought I'd have to make a lot of patch pieces, like a piece there and a piece there and a piece there and a piece there, and then weld it all together as like patchwork quilt. The alternative was that I could get a boot floor, well, like this one, really, and just chop that section off and weld that section back in again, and that's the whole section done. I bought an entire boot floor. I got it off of a guy while I was there. Bought it for about 40 quid. So as you can see, that is the piece that needs replacing. And when I was looking at this boot floor looks in pretty good condition actually. He wasn't sure whether it had been cut, but the moment I lay that up against that panel, I can see that no, it hasn't been cut. That looks exactly as it should be. What I can see is here, this edge here, when I look at Millie's boot floor, there isn't this piece here. There isn't a join. It's all one piece that goes up and over the back axle. So it's going to need to be cut across the back axle of Millie, across there. So my first plan while I was at Ford Fair was to just chop it kind of here somewhere and just throw away the rest of this and just use that piece. But then I thought, well, you know, it's a good boot floor. I may as well fit it. So the other question then was how to get it here. So I was going to cut it in half here and put two halves in my suitcase. But in the end, it was cheap to just send it as one piece. So the boot floor in here is now coming out and will be replaced with the one that I've just bought. So where that floor fits is there's a join just there. So you can see where the old piece that I've cut out was joined. So that's where that floor there then joins to. That gets welded to there, so it's in front of these bolts here, so those bolts don't need to come out. I can still have it in the jig. But as you can see on that edge there, that line there doesn't exist along here, but it's somewhere about here, I would imagine. So I'm going to need to cut all the way across there pretty much, but then the whole boot floor will come out as one piece, and I'll be able to replace the entire boot floor then. So all of this rot that was here is now going to be repaired. All I've got to really do is repair that little part there in the just before the anti-roll bar hole. The damage on this side, if I remember right, there it is. The damage to this side is only really that piece there, which is about where the anti-roll bar should be. So this side isn't actually that damaged, but at the end of the day it will have a brand new boot floor. So any rot or anything, it's only rot or anything, and there is a little bit just there by the look of it, as you can see. So that probably that part of the wheel arch there will need a little bit of a replacement, but the rest of the boot floor will be all a new panel. But until the next episode, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to press the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot, and bye-bye.